Welcome to The Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson and thanks for joining me in this week's episode. In this week's episode, I've got a client of mine who has been on the channel before when I turned her hair a beautiful shade of soft copper strawberry blonde. This time we're going blonde, and we've started way back being red a few months ago, and each time she comes to visit me, all the way from Bournemouth actually, all the way to Brighton just for me to colour her hair, we've gone a little bit lighter each time, and I'm a real advocate of going on blonde journeys slowly rather than trying to do it all in one big hit and creating a lot of damage. Pre-treating, post-treating and getting them to treat their hair at home is ultra important for me in the blonde journey. In this particular episode, we're going to do some spatula highlighting and techniques which you'll have seen quite a few times on the channel now, but I really like to give you a broad spectrum of possibilities with each of these techniques so that you guys can envisage how they can best fit your salon life, and you can use these techniques to their maximum advantage over your salon day. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, then smash that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much to all of you that have hit that subscribe button. It means such a lot to me. And don't forget to chat to me down in the comments below. I will get back to you. It will always take a few days, but I will get back to you because I so enjoy spending that time down in the comment section, answering your questions and hearing your thoughts on the video. So until next time, have a great week and I'll see you then. This is a super simple technique, one that you will have seen on the channel before in a similar way, but I like to show you different ways of using the same techniques for different effects. In this particular instance, Chloe's hair wants to go on a blonde journey. So previously you will have seen Chloe on the channel having a copper/strawberry blonde colour melt, and this time we're going to take her nice and blonde. This technique is, as always, just keeping it very simple, using a clay pre-lightener to saturate the hair with to avoid any imprinting. Control of saturation is ultra important due to the fact that if you do leave too much saturation on the hair when you're doing a freehand spatula or balayage technique, as this is, you will get printing on the hair underneath. So be assured to keep the underneath of your sections with as little bleach on as possible. You will note as my board comes away from the head, I have got it tilted down slightly at the handle end. This is to ensure that this board pulls off some of the saturation from the back side of the section. In this particular instance, I have separated Chloe's hair into 4 sections, and I've utilised her natural growth pattern where her hair wants to sit back naturally at the highest points of her head. The weave for this section is super important. We've taken 1 centimetre sections throughout, but we have taken a deep weave in that 1 centimetre section, but it does not travel all the way through the section to the underneath. As you can see here, they're like small gullies that have been dug out of the section but have not passed all the way through the 1 centimetre section. This is paramount for this technique and is something that I recommend that you deploy when you practice it at home or on your client. Even consistent weaves with this technique is very important also. Keeping the size of your weaves the similar size throughout the technique does help with continuity. It also helps with the depth of the sections and controlling the depth of the sections as you work. As you approach the root area, you'll note that I turn my brush to a vertical painting angle. This helps to soften up towards the roots. This is a really useful thing to do, especially when you want to softly transition out a root stretch later, which is what I'm going to do to this technique. I always weave my sections around the face right off the front hairline. However, this isn't essential. It's deciding how much blonde your client wants around their face. In this particular instance, what we're doing with this technique is we're moving Chloe's whole head lighter. So in the instance of creating lightness around her face, it's probably a good idea for me to paint very close to her face, giving her a higher impact blonde feel in the long run. Just removing some of the saturation from underneath that section there, using that upstroke technique that you just saw. It is paramount importance that you do not have too much saturation on the underneath of your section. On this final section, you'll see that I've removed a small slither of hair because I am working in Chloe's parting. I always work with the natural partings that they're going to wear the hair in. That small slither will ensure that these two sections in the parting do not sit touching one another, or back to back as some people would call it. I think this is very important in the long run because it will ensure that when you come to part the hair, you do not have a mass of blonde sitting there touching one another. Here you can see the finished painting result, and now we will move on to toning. With this particular toner, I'm going to do my classic root stretch technique where I paint down to the parietal ridge. The parietal ridge is the ridge just above the ear, and it runs right round through the top of the occipital bone. The occipital bone is the bone in the back of the head. If you run your hand up the back of your head, you will feel your head protrudes out, and that is your occipital bone. Painting down past the occipital bone and the parietal ridge is two very key ways of creating a beautifully soft balayage effect. Painting past the parietal ridge is a superb way of creating a beautifully soft effect. The subsequent sections underneath the parietal ridge want to be painted down to a similar position to the length that you stretched out your roots on the top. If, for instance, you've got a side parting, a right hand side parting, you will want to paint in that right hand side parting down to the parietal ridge. You will not be painting as far down on the right hand side as you will on the left hand side. Once you have applied all of your roots, and I mean all of your roots, this is the fastest way to do this. You can then control your saturation. You'll be able to see right now that I'm pointing out something that I hope you can see very clearly on this screen, but may not. I'm using my comb to stretch down my product from glossy at the roots to satin in the mids to matte towards the ends of the section. This is very, very important for even control of saturation and the perfect blend with your root stretch. I'm also angling my combs slightly towards me, as you saw me just pointing out. This helps to prevent any buildup of product in the comb's teeth and then leaving lines throughout my root stretch. Doing the perfect root stretch before you start to blend any other colours into it will save you a lot of time and effort later. You can absolutely trust me on this one. And a really hot tip is never ever comb directly off the root area. Always place your comb around 1 centimetre or more away from the root area to bring your product down. You do not want to do this because you will end up with too much product in your root stretch, and this will cause you all manner of problems later. Once you have executed your root stretch and you are happy with your control of saturation throughout, you then work through your sections, applying your secondary colour. You simply apply your secondary colour over the matte area that I described earlier. If you can't see that in this particular video, then please let me know and I'll make a separate video explaining exactly what I mean and giving you the best tips and tricks on how to do a root stretch. I also want to do a video about how to control mistakes when you're doing techniques like this. So if that would be some interest to you, then please let me know in the comment section down below. Once we've applied our end, we just allow it to process for manufacturer's development time. In this instance, the manufacturer's development time is 20 minutes. And here we have Chloe's finished colour, a beautiful, cool but warm blonde with dimension and subtle tones throughout. I really love the tones that are running through Chloe's hair with this technique. I love that combination of cool and warm. Cool and warm generally is described as beige in most cases. So if you want to call it beige to your clients, then be my guest, but it's not the sexiest term you've ever heard. I'm sure you'll agree. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, then please hit that thumbs up button. Join me down in the comments for any thoughts that you have on the video, and smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. It is massively appreciated.